Featured speaker is Donald Wright of Foxborough, and he's going to speak about Memorial Hall and its replica in Illinois, which he went out to visit. As a boy, I spent countless hours in that beautiful building on the other side of the common. Dawn will tell you it's called Memorial Hall, but to many people it's called the library. And to me, it's known as the library. Donald Wright is an active member of the Foxborough Historical Society, a member and board member of the Foxborough Historical Commission, and a past president of the Boston Society for Technical Communication. He and his wife Evelyn live on Union Street. They belong to several other historical societies in the New England area and have done extensive New England genealogical research. I'm going to turn the program over to Dawn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have enjoyed the town of Foxborough for many years, maybe not quite as much as some of all of you, but we have lived here since after the blizzard, let me say it that way. And so after the blizzard is when we came here, and we've enjoyed living in this area, and I've enjoyed especially serving on the historical board of the Historical Commission and on the and also on the Historical Society. One of the things that has really got me interested is the fact that you have such a beautiful town. We have such a beautiful town. And we have such a beautiful common, and we have some great buildings that are of a historical nature. And I am from the Missouri area myself. I was born and reared in St. Louis. And in that particular area, I discovered that there's a town called Aurora, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago. And it's a suburb, and I have some papers over here on the side to talk about, that talks about the size of the town. In fact, the town is quite a bit larger than what Foxborough is. I would size it about the size of Brockton, perhaps. It's quite a large town, if any of you are familiar with it. And I found this reference in one of the Foxborough reporters, like in 1890 or something like that, where that we had there was a building, someone had come here and liked the building so well that they modeled after our building that we had built called Memorial Hall. And as Patrick indicates, most of you probably know it as the library, but it was built, in fact, for a dual purpose. It was built originally for the GAR. So the first part of my presentation, I'm going to talk tonight a little bit about the GAR and the Civil War and how that works. But I want to get my equipment going here, so just bear with me for one little second where I get some of my stuff moving here. I'm going to present in two different ways. I'm going to present one way with just straight pictures from the camera, and I'm going to talk to what they do, and forgive me if I'm not looking directly at you. But I wanted to show you a presentation of, first of all, how fortunate we are to have such a structure in our own town, and how fortunate we still are to have that structure there and have it in the shape that it's in. Now let's see if I can get this to working here. If I don't shut it off again.
Lights back on?
Just one set of lights, please. All right, as you know, we have Memorial Hall here. I'm just running this off of the straight camera now. And it's a beautiful structure. I think it's Greek or Gothic, not Greek, but Gothic style. And the thing that I like about it is the beautiful color. And when I went to Aurora, Illinois, and I talked to my contact, she asked me, she says, well, what kind of granite is that? Because to her, the pictures that I brought out was of a local granite that looked like it was pink granite. And the building that I'm going to show you, the one that is a replica of, okay, I'm sorry, the one that it's a replica of is built out of more of a white granite structure. But there's a lot of things about this particular building that is very good. Now, I walked around the building before I left because I had visited, in fact, 2 or 3 times to the location in Aurora, Illinois. And as you notice here, one of the things that's nice about it is the peaked roof, the condition that the roof is in, the structure, the fact that it has stained glass windows, and it's an 8-sided shape building. And so it's a very nice piece of architecture. The other thing that's nice about it is the statue on the top. And I understand that there was some restoration done before I even came to Foxborough that made it, kept it even better. And it's very nice, and this piece here is nice. And I want to point these things out because I'm going to show you how some folks built a building, and they had some really good intentions, but things didn't turn out quite as well as what we have. So here's another picture with the lamp post and the carpenter mark in the front. The things I want you to notice is the fact that we have a lot of nice open space, and we have a lot of nice green grass around it, because those things I think are important for us to note. And then here's the one with the cannon here. Notice the entrance and the building and the 8 sides. This piece right here that I'm showing you now is the piece I think that was added around 1895, if I'm not mistaken. It was in sometime in that particular era. I'm not strictly knowing every fact and every detail about Memorial Hall, and I don't profess to do that. But tonight my purpose is to show you, to compare and contrast and show you how some folks took a great idea and they wanted to move forward on it. Now you do know that this was in a cemetery, and in fact they moved some of the graves down to the Rock Hill Cemetery, which is down behind Union Street where I live. On the inside, one of the things that's really nice when you're just sitting there is the fact that you have the stained glass windows, and they're still there. They're still there because they're beautiful from the standpoint you go in like in the morning or something like that, you see the sun shining through it, and it's a fantastic sight to see. And we, of course, house a museum. The other thing that is really unique about our building is the fact that we have these tablets and the war memorial, but this wood is left intact. It's left in its original shape. And as I'm going to point out in a few minutes, that's something that's very important because sometimes things can get changed up and they're not as good as what they should be. The other thing is that this other doorway that we have here, and of course behind that we have the environmental controls that are back there, and we're protecting our information and our archives and all that. Everything is pretty much the way it was when it was built originally. And that's a very good thing because now we have a building that we don't have to go through and change again, and it has worked out tremendously. The other thing is a lot of little details were left intact. This is looking up above the door, and here's the window that says 1776. These were important because they haven't been taken out, no one's busted them out or anything happened like that. All of the other windows are left intact, and we've put displays around in the other areas, and we've got quite a thing. So in case you haven't been there, this gives you an idea of what shape our building is in. I think it's in very good shape, and I wanted to show you that before I go on to the next set of photos. The other thing that we just recently did was one of those panes was broken, and it was replaced. And it took several years just to get the right tent back in the right way that we had it. And so a lot of painstaking time and just to get it just to the right point, to get it just exactly right, has been taken. Does anybody know which one was replaced? Any idea? The other thing I want you to notice is notice that symbol. It's actually, I didn't take it right side up, but down would be down this way. Okay? And what that is that's a GAR symbol. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what GAR is And I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with what GAR is. Here's another one of the windows, and I'm not sure if this is above the right or left-hand door. One of the things I want to point out to you is the fact that in the Illinois Aurora Building, there is more GAR-like windows all around it. It seemed like that this particular work was more of an independent work, that the GAR, since it was headquartered in Illinois, didn't have as much influence on having GAR symbols in the particular building that we have. But nevertheless, we have some great windows. Above the center is this fantastic stained glass window. It's just absolutely fantastic what we have. And then I took a couple of more shots, and this was before I left for Aurora on my picture taking exploring. And of course, I got the steamer shed, because that is, in fact, a part of another building that represents the history of Foxborough, and it's quite unique that we have it. And one more, the thing I wanted to recognize was the fact that we have the historic marker program that we have is fantastic. We have a lot of things that are going for us, a lot of things in Foxborough that is really neat. This one here talks about Memorial Hall. It's looking in the other direction, so it's a dual-sided historical marker. And Jack Authelette has done a great job in promoting the historical marker program. One of the things on the Common that's important is that we have memorials now on the Common. If you notice that the first one for the Civil War was built on the corner, and then the other memorials were put on the Common. So there's a lot of different memorials. For example, this memorial here is to the firefighters of Foxborough, and that is located on the Foxborough Common. This one here happens to be for the police. And so the issue here is the memorials of Foxborough, really, is what we're talking about, in memory of. And then this is the Common, of course. And the thing I want you to notice about it is the fact that you have a lot of open space. I'm leading somewhere with these particular comments. These happen to be Lebanon, Grenada, Panama, Persian Gulf on the back side. I took a few shots of those before I left. And then this is, of course, for Vietnam, Korea, on these that are on the Common as well. You see them as you drive by them, but to look at them close up, you really need to recognize the significance of them. Here's another one here of the same area. Here's the one that was moved not too long ago. I think it's for World War II. Is that not right? World War I, okay. Well, this is World War II. So we have a beautiful place for the memorials, and I think that's very significant. And I took this in the springtime. It's a little bit different right now. It's really nice because it shows the beautiful area that we have for us just to go and collect our thoughts and do things and think about where we're at and orient ourselves and things of that type. Now from there, what I did is I went to, and I flew to Aurora. I was flying to Missouri where I was reared. And this first picture is inside a tower of the Aurora facility. And I'm going to show you a couple of, many more pictures. But what I wanted to show you is the fact that only this center window has the stained glass window remaining in it. And these are long windows, and these are in a large tower type structure. And what it is there was a staircase leading up to another piece that was built like in 1904 or something of that type. And so what they did is that, let's see if I can get this turned back now. All right, I'm going to let the computer take over now. Okay, how's that? I'll let the camera rest for a second. Because I want to show you in a programmatical way some of the things that I've been talking about here. And I want to talk a little bit about what the GAR was. And I know that a lot of you probably already know, but for those of you who don't, the GAR stands for the Grand Army of the Republic. And it was an organization, and I have a list of the states over on the board that's over there, like New York, Maine, Illinois, even Oklahoma, Missouri, Ohio. The northern states had this organization their prime purpose was to honor and memorialize the soldiers, especially those who had passed on. And in fact, one of the things that came out of the GAR and the Civil War was Memorial Day. And one of the ways that we tell history from the standpoint of the U.S. history is with postcards. And I have an excellent representation here of a postcard. And on this postcard that I have is a hat, and it has the GAR emblem on it, and it's a Memorial Day souvenir. And these things sometimes are rare, sometimes they're not so rare, but they're a collector's item. And I got this particular one from my brother, who is a collector of GAR memorabilia. And so it was very nice to get this type of information. The founder of the GAR was Major B.F. Stevenson. He was born in Springfield, Illinois. He died in Petersburg, Illinois. He was at the first National Convention in Indianapolis, and they had medals, and the medal looked like this. And you notice that the stained glass windows that we've looked at in both of the buildings have those particular symbols within the stained glass windows. And so that's where some of the significance is at. One of the things that they did is they had what they call encampments. And each year they would go from one place to another and hold, in a sense, their convention. And so the convention was one place, and this particular postcard is a very valuable one, and it was in Louisville, Kentucky in September of 1895. And the thing that it points out is that their slogan, or the things that they really emphasized, was fraternity, charity, and loyalty. And this pretty much represented the sense of what the GAR, the Grand Army of the Republic, was all about. Now, I was on duty one night in Memorial Hall, like on a Wednesday night, and somebody from Atlanta came here, and I said, would you like to see the GAR? And he says, well, I don't know, because you realize that the GAR wasn't very significant to the folks in the Confederacy. It was actually started by Dr. B.F. Stevenson, and the B.F. stood for Benjamin Franklin Stevenson. And so this is the guy who was responsible for the establishment of the GAR. And so he started it. And as I mentioned to you before, they had different encampments. Now this shape here, I want to mention to you, this is a very rare book, and I don't know of anyone else who has it, but my brother that has one is a book. And it was in Buffalo, New York. That's why it's shaped like a buffalo. So it's a very difficult printing job. And so this was the 31st encampment in 1897, and then these are medals. Each year they would award a different medal for the particular encampment or the convention. It wasn't like you'd get a blue ribbon or something like we get today, or something that says I was at this. They actually had these things, these medals that they would wear for the encampments to celebrate and memorialize the fact that they went to these particular encampments. And that's where they would all get together for, in a sense, their convention. Now, inside the Buffalo book is a list of each one of them that had started through 1897. And so this book is in excellent shape. It shows each one of the conventions and who was the leader at the particular time. This book is then about 100 years old. It's shaped like a buffalo, and I think it's a very valuable piece of memorabilia from the GAR that shows the different encampments. This would be like your National Convention book, except they went to great lengths. And you can tell they probably had a lot of money, or they donated a lot of money into this to make these things work. One of the things that was interesting to me, and was the fact of the music of the Civil War era. And I don't know why it's not working now, but it was working a few minutes ago. I had some music playing, and it was just a sample of some of the things that you can do on the internet and pull the music down. But I wanted to show you a little bit about that. One of the things I wanted to do too was the fact that here's the photos that we saw of the Foxborough building. I want to do just a little bit of a comparison. Both of the buildings were built for the GAR, the Grand Army of the Republic. Here's the one in Aurora, here's the one in Foxborough. Same design, size, stained glass, and they're both a soldier's memorial and a library. They started out originally both in the fact that it was really built as a soldier's memorial. But the person who built the one in Illinois wanted to build it just like the one in Foxborough. That's the key thing in the words that they did. The one in walking around, again, here's the building, you walk around it, you walk on the side, you notice that there's no stained glass because they took them out during one of the restorations. And then in the back, there's this solid white piece in the back. That's the back of this tower right here. And so a lot of things, I thought maybe they built it that way originally. And one gentleman here, Mr. Leonard, is that your name? He showed me a postcard, and I had not seen that before. But one of the things that they did is they took down some of the structure, and I think that some of the building was there that they took down. And so that was just like a paste over that they had done. At one point, they even talked about taking this tower off because those were stairways that led into a building back into this area here that you don't see any longer now today. And we've talked about the windows, how they differ in style. You notice Foxborough is much more, traditional stained glass. The ones in Aurora are more of the GAR symbols. Of course, it's in the land of Lincoln, and Abraham Lincoln was there, and I would expect to see that quite a bit. Again, you have the same symbols. You have the tower. Here's the windows from the outside, and here they are from the inside, and we've looked at that briefly on the camera. The Aurora Building, Fred White, businessman, proposed a structure like Foxborough. The cornerstone was laid in 1877 for the Aurora Building. And the other fact is that the architect was a man by the name of Joseph Mulvey. They used local quarry, and it's in an 8-sided shaped building. The other thing was the fact of the statues. The statues are exactly the same in the Foxborough and in the building that's in Aurora, Illinois. The other fact is that this one has this Book of Life angel that's in the center, and it seems like it's always been part of that when it was used for that particular reason. The Aurora Building, the tower was added in 1906, and the building was raised 3 feet before they even started to add the tower. So that's the reason they took all the glass out, is because they wanted to raise the building. Now they're beside a river, and the name of the river is the Fox River. And at one point, even here recently, they had some flooding, they had some freezing, and so the structural integrity of the building is even is a problem, as it is mentioned in this particular report that I have. The stained glass was replaced, kitchen was added for banquets, and in 1947 they disbanded with 6 members. Now the building that we have, at least it was around 1920 that I think they disbanded here. It was much earlier, according to a report in the Foxborough newspaper. Now the tower, as I walk around it, and I use the garage, as I walked around it this way, I walked around it this way, this is blocked out, then I walked up here, this is the flat roof, and then you walk on the top and you can see the statue here. This is all painted in like red paint. It's just painted all over. There's no windows, no glass, no nothing. And so it's in not as good a shape as what our building is that we have, unfortunately. This is the museum where I got the pictures of Mrs. Church and the fine work that she has done. The other thing is the fact that this is the statue that they made of Fred White, and then here's the story. And this is actually just in the PowerPoint format. And this is a picture of the river. I don't think I've showed you this, but on the other side, looking away from the building, that's the Fox River. Sometimes it floods, sometimes it doesn't. And the building is actually on a small island, if you will. It's on Downer Street, as I mentioned before. Here's some of the symbols that they wore, and here's the women's division of the GAR that they wore. They had special ones. My brother informs me that sometimes the wearing of a tie, if it's black and white, it means that your spouse was in the Civil War. And it was some very interesting things when you really get into the study and the work. The fact is that the GAR established Memorial Day. It was done by Major John A. Logan. And the thing is that in Alabama and Mississippi, they didn't celebrate Memorial Day on the same time. They had it in the last Monday of April. Georgia was April the 26th. Virginia was the last day of May. Louisiana and Tennessee was June the 3rd, and Texas had Confederate Heroes Day, and I think it was 1967, I'm not sure on the date, that it became a federal holiday for Memorial Day. And the other fact is it's along the Fox River, and it's on a walkway designated as the Fox Walkway in 1991. So that's a little bit of the presentation I wanted to show you. I have a few more photos I can show you if I can get the camera to go back on again. Okay? Hang on just one sec. 1904 or something of that type. And so what they did is that, let's see if I can get this turned back now. When I was, okay, here we are. So this particular piece here is the one window that has a stained glass inside of it. On the other side of the wall in this tower, there are no stained glass windows. And so the building that I'm showing you now is one that was pretty much made like the one that we have, except they added this particular tower. So what I'm showing you is this tower on the side of this building, and it actually was a staircase. And so what I'm showing you at this particular point is a GAR symbol here, and then going down you see the remaining stained glass window. Now this building is not in the greatest of shape. It was built after ours, it was patterned after ours, but so what you're seeing now is some of the photos that I took back in May when I was out in that particular area. Of the few things that are remaining there are some of the windows in the tower that look like this, and they are very nice and they're very beautiful, and they have some nice some stained glass windows to them. One of the things that I was a bit disappointed in was that the building wasn't in the greatest of shape. I'm going to show you a little bit about the interior, and the fact is that they had a $1.7 million grant from the state of Illinois that they did not receive, and that was of great concern for them because they had to do a lot of work to get this building back into shape. And one of the things that had happened over the period of time, and there's a report, the report is here, a complete architectural report, and you're welcome to take a look at this after the program, in where they looked at the structure, they looked at the basis that it was built on, they looked at the windows, they looked at the interior, and some of the things that they pointed out was the fact that the floor had been replaced, that at one time it was made out of light oak. It was a very, very nice, and they somehow put something on top of it, and they painted over the top of that, and they also took the wood, just like what we have, and they painted over it with white paint. When they tried to fix it up, they changed things all the way around. And so with that, I want to go a little bit into the program that I have here. All right, the next thing I want to show you is this. This is the ceiling. This is the way it looks as of May of this year, where we have the stained glass window, and we took the painstaking time to put it all together and make it look really nice. Unfortunately, this is what it looks like in the upper portion of the ceiling. Now, maybe I'm showing you the worst first, but I just want you to get an idea of where this building is at today. And they had very high hopes of making this a much, much better place. They have some things over the windows. You can see some of these marble tablets over here on the side. And I think there's a total of 8 marble tablets that they have inside the building. Here's another one here of some of the structures. So they had started working on it, they lost their funding, and it was controlled not by the town, but it was controlled by the state of Illinois. And so maybe that's the demise of the particular building. Across the street, there is a model of the building in a museum, and then they show a picture of their own building here. And this museum is one in which I went through, and a lady by the name of Rena Church, who was so kind to take me through this building and show it to me, was the person who also showed me through the museum. They also have the same statue on top of it that we have on ours here. In other words, it is really a replica in that particular sense, except for the tower. The other thing is they have a brief history of the Grand Army of the Republic. They have a picture of our building in their museum, and they refer to our building as the one that they copied. The one thing that is different is that right inside, when we looked at that one picture a few minutes ago, there was like this white grate that was in the very center of the building, and they had this angel, and they called this the angel room, and this was sort of like the protectorate of the soldiers. And so this one thing was what was distinctly different about this particular building, is that they had this angel figure within the area. And it looks like the angel is writing something. I think it's called the Book of Life, is what the angel is called. The other thing that they did is behind the angel, they took the stained glass windows out, and then they kept some of them, and they have them in the museum, which is across the street. And so rather than let them get broke, at least they did preserve some of the windows. And so at least you have some semblance of what the stained glass windows look like. Again, you have the GAR symbols and those things of that type. This is Ms. Rena Church, and she's standing here beside some of the GAR members. There was about, I think, 600 members in the year of 1900. And what they did is that we had various activities. They did a number of things. And these are the pictures of the people who were in the service. And these pictures go on and on and on and on along 2 sides of 2 walls. And it's really something to take a look at these, because there are photos of people who were in the Civil War on the Union side, of course. And it lists what they did and shows a photograph of each one of them. And so it's a nice place to see. I was wondering, as I've gone back and forth, did we ever have anything like this at ours? And to my knowledge, I haven't found anything to that effect. There's probably something around, but we don't know where it's at, that type of situation. This is Fred White. Fred White was the guy who came to Foxborough who said, I like that design. He was a businessman, and he was responsible for making that building the same design and the same structure. I had reported it was a man by the name of Day when we wrote the newspaper thing, but unfortunately I was incorrect, so I stand corrected. It was Fred White, and he was a businessman. And that's the only thing that I really know about him. I tried to do some research, and I just couldn't find anything upon him. This is Rena, and she's holding this globe, and the reason she's holding it is so that I can show you all what they did for their historical society. And one of the things that they did is they took the historical structures and they had them modeled inside this globe. And one of the things in there, right where I'm at right now, is that GAR building, or the library building, as you would say, Patrick. It was in here, and it's a snow thing. You shake it up, and then you wind it up, and it's a music box. And you can't see it here, but I'm going to show you in a second. There's a little train that runs around that, because Aurora is a place of trains. And there's a lot of train tracks that run through Aurora. And so it's really interesting to see what that looks like. I'm going to go to the next one. All right, now this one is a little closer. And if you can see it, it's this building right here. Now I'm going to take the camera and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. And I apologize to the folks who write in, but my cord's not long enough here. All right, so what that is a snow globe. I guess that's what you call it. And they made these, and they did this so that they could make money for their historical society. And I think they charged about $25 a piece for them. And she said that they made in the range of $3,000 to $5,000, something like that. But it was something that they did as a fundraising. Isn't that quite a deal? Here's another picture of it. And then this one here, it's actually much clearer, in which you can see the building right here with the soldier and the top on it. But it's inside the city because this town area of Aurora is quite a city place. Now this is the actual exterior of the building. I've held it until now to show you the similarity. And I'll just stay that right there for just a second. Because you notice that the shape, the structure, everything except this piece over here on the right-hand side looks very, very, very similar to the building that we have here in Foxborough. It's not on as large of a piece of land, and you notice that there's a parking lot over here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels to that parking lot. And I used that parking lot to take some additional photos because it worked out really well. I got some nice shots. But the fact of having it there, it feels like it's closed in, you know. So it was very interesting. Here's another shot, maybe a little bit better, but it shows you that this type of structure here, it almost looks like a castle. They have some nice street lights, and this is on Downer Street in Aurora. And the river that runs beside, and I'm going to show you the river in just a few minutes, ironically, the name of the river is called Fox River. The thing that is unique about this building is that it had a number of additions where they've worked on it, reworked it, worked on it again. They actually raised the building 3 feet in the early 1900s. They lowered the floor. They put a kitchen in the basement, which was now much outdated. They painted everything in there, and in 1965 they painted everything again. Unfortunately, painting over that great wood that like we have in Foxborough, where you see the great original wood. It was just, in fact, this report that I have here indicates that perhaps they can't even come back to the same structure that they had. It would just be too much work. The other thing that they have here is they have a couple of cannon, and these cannon were actually from the Confederate side that they brought them up, but it was still, you know, a war memorial for the GAR doing things that they would like to do. So here's the side of the building. If you go over and look at the side of our building, it looks exactly, you know, pretty much like that, except for the color. When I showed her the pictures on my camera, she says, "My goodness, why is it so pink?" And that was the comment, as I mentioned before, because it was a different style of granite. Here's some of the windows, and I was actually looking up. The river was at my back, and I was looking up at this particular building. She mentioned to me that at some time the foundation, they have to rebuild the foundation just to keep the building going. And when I mentioned at the very beginning of my presentation, we're so thankful. I mean, our building is sound, it's structural, it's there. We don't have any problems with it, you know. It's not a problem, nothing like what they're having with the particular building. And it's just going to get like $1.7 million to get it back into shape. So, unfortunately, it was built after ours, but it's in poor need of some real good repairs. This is the Fox River I was talking to you about. And so actually the building is sitting on an island, but the island is okay, but it's in the middle of it. And then today there's so many buildings around, it's almost like an area like the Back Bay, you know, where it's built on top of water and stilts, that type of thing. There's another picture across the street. And I got one there. And then I got a pretty decent picture of the tower itself. And then the parking lot is on the side. And so Rena was very helpful. She allowed me to do this. they only open up like on the last part of the week, and she opened this up especially for me. So I was very glad that she did this, because it gave me a chance to work it into my travel plans. On the side, something that we don't see in ours is this piece right here. It was a little bit of a different structure. I think when they did that part, they did it a little bit differently. And then this is on the side, and there's a stairway that goes up. And then here you can see some of the paint is peeling and the roof needs a little bit of repair. So the basic building, the basic shape is there. This is looking up from the ground level at the tower. And as I walk up the garage levels, you can see that I'm looking here, and you can see the river. You can see the rest of the parking garage here. And so it's very tight, it's very closed in, is what my point is, from the fact that if you didn't know it was there, you'd have to look for it, really. The other fact is that here, this is the statue, and if I zoomed in on that, you'd see it's not in the greatest of shape. But the original designation that's in the report here, it said it was made out of copper, if I read it properly. And there was a lot of things that were very similar that they did. They had the same intentions, but after 1906, and especially in 1965, it just seemed like things sort of fell apart, and they didn't do it the same. Here's a top angle, and the thing that they're having problems with now is, of course, the flat roof, and it's doing a lot of leaking and things of that type. Here's a picture looking down from the highest point of the garage, and that's basically it as far as the photos that I have. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them. I'm not sure I can answer them succinctly or to the point, but I'll at least try. You had it, Deb?
Yeah, what was the purpose of the tower?
The purpose of the tower? From what I understand, that when they built the library, they built a piece out here in the back, and the tower was the steps. And so there's still steps there. She and I walked up these rickety old steps. I mean, I was almost scared to walk up them. And that's got to be pretty bad. But the staircase is still there.
So the tower was for the staircase to get to the room in the back?
That's correct. The room that they tore down.
They left the stairway.
But they left the stairway. There was some talk of taking this off back in 1965, but I guess they just never got around to it, taking it off.
What's the monument in the cemetery that looks like this?
You're talking about the Carpenter?
I think of the Carpenter
Memorial? It may be.
And the Carpenters were involved in getting this
Yes.
up probably.
In fact, I have a page over there off the website of E.P. Carpenter, and he was responsible for a lot of the activities, especially that were going on in the 1870s and 1880s.
Yeah.
They didn't get our cemetery anyway.
No, they didn't. In fact, I saw the cemetery was in the Ripley's, believe it or not.
I heard about that a long time ago.
Cemetery with the library in it.
Yes.
Cemetery in the library.
That's right.
Library, yeah. A library and a cemetery.
Now, as far as what does the future hold? In other words, what we don't see. This report, and I showed to Mr. Leonard, was for this particular building. It was done by some architects. They talked about the history and the past and the structure and the future of it. And I probably know more about the building in Aurora than I do know about Memorial Hall right now. But they have indicated it would take somewhere, and this was in 1999, that it would take around $2 million, I think, close to $2 million, just to get it in decent shape, probably. And even then, they wouldn't know which place to restore it to, because it had so many restorations that it's difficult to know, well, which way do you want to do it? Do you want to do it with the tower, without the tower, with the back building, without it, with the white paint and over the wood? It was a number of issues, and on top of that, the very basic foundation had cracks in it, and the cracks would have to be repaired first before they do that. So they're sort of in a quandary on what to do. On top of that, Illinois has a funding problem. Since it's funded by the state of Illinois, that puts it in a precarious position because they've gone through recent cuts in the last couple of years, and so it doesn't have a great prognosis. You had a postcard I wanted to mention. In fact, you've corresponded with them, and one of the things that's interesting, is the fact that on this you can actually see a structure behind this tower. And I had not seen this postcard until he brought it tonight. But this structure back here was the structure that they had built in addition. Now, one of the things over in the Memorial Hall in our archives, we have some pictures of what E.P. Carpenter wanted to do, like in 1909. And the structure looks very much similar to that tower structure, except it was round. And he wanted to put it where I believe the water tower was. And so I think that there was continual communication between this person and the other person, although I can't prove it. But it sure looks like it because it was in about the same time frame. The other things they brought over was some things from Aurora to show you the size of the town, some books, the Civil War GAR sites. There was something like 700 GAR chapters in Illinois. There was 104 in Massachusetts. There was tons of them in Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, far down as Oklahoma. And then, of course, when you go with the southern states, you have those others who celebrated Memorial Day on different dates. They had their own organizations to celebrate the war.
Just a question on that Memorial Day thing.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the back of my squash, I don't know whether it was a Great Southern victory or a Great Southern defeat that occurred in the latter part of May one year, and that's why they never celebrated Memorial Day. I think it was a victory. They made it like a 4th of July. And unfortunately, my Civil War history is not very good. I wonder if anybody ever remembers any particular victory. What, Ted?
All I know they different dates on the hierarchy.
Yeah, but the South, as I say, they were celebrating something different. Obviously, if we were celebrating a Memorial Day, they were celebrating a victory. Since it came out, the institution of the Memorial Day holiday observance, was predicated on some event of some significance. It was to the North, it was a very, a particular battle. Next meeting, I will have a better story.
There is a ton of information on the internet. People are just really hung up on the Civil War. And you can use Google, a search engine, and type in Civil War GAR, and you can find out a ton of information on those type of subjects. Did somebody back there have a question?
That's right.
Yes, it is. But it's all static. So it's not, I don't want to turn it up.
I figured
Just back it.
Does the GAR exist now in any form, a library, a curator, or anything?
I think there are some GAR that still exist, although it's more called the Sons of the Revolution. And there's a group of them in Missouri, I know that's still active. And, but mostly the GAR has died out. Now, when I was in Illinois, one of the things I wanted to mention to you was the fact that the GAR headquarters was in Springfield, Illinois. My brother sent me a picture, and the building right now, if you try to go through it, is closed because of money cuts or something. I don't know what the problem is. The other thing is that if you go to Petersburg, Illinois, which is just outside of St. Louis a little bit, you'll find the founder of the GAR. There's a large memorial of his, and it looks like the typical GAR symbol on his tombstone. There's a lot of history about it, but the GAR itself, and as we have in our books here that Jack has written, You've seen a lot of members of the GAR, and you've seen them standing in front of the memorial building. But as far as having this type of an organization, I think that we don't have anything like this from the history that we have now. You have more, your Veterans of Foreign Wars, you have your American Legion, or you have some of your organizations like that. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you is if you're in Illinois, you absolutely must visit Springfield. Of course, Illinois is Lincoln heaven, or whatever. That's what I call it, because everything is Abraham Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln. I have some pictures on here of Lincoln's tomb. It's of a bronze nature. I can flip to it if you want and show you. But then there's also this memorial, and it's like, I'd say 100 feet high. And has anyone been there? And plus, they just dedicated the new library for Abraham Lincoln. And inside of it, now I've been to Epcot, and it's like Epcot. You go in and you see all these snaps showed, and you see the ghost of Abraham Lincoln, and you see all this good stuff. It's only $7 to go through it. It's fantastic. So if you're ever in Illinois, central Illinois, take time to spend a day and go through the Lincoln Memorial. And I was there at the graveyard. In fact, I've got some pictures of the cannons sticking down on the ground in some of the regiments of those. If you want me to flip to them in just a second, I can do that. But you got a question over here.
Who owns Memorial Hall?
Who owns the town?
The town, I assume. In the town out there owns it?
No, that's what's different, is it's not the town out there. It's actually owned by the art department of Aurora. The art department and the cultural society own the building.
Do they use it for anything? I mean, in
No.
pictures you showed, it looks
No,
deserted.
it's actually right now, it's not being used at all. And that's what is really a shame, because it's just not being used.
And they don't get any
Utilized.
financial support from the town or city of Aurora?
No, it's all state support, and on a state budget, then you can understand that it's a different situation.
It's a state budget, not a town budget.
That's correct.
Supporting
Don,
Yes.
did Rena indicate that there was a movement at one time afoot to take it down, to destroy it?
She indicated that a number of things, that they had a number of recommendations. I think it's been tossed around so much that that's certainly within the realm of possibility.
Maybe a rumor, maybe not.
It could be, I don't know. One of the things here, this is the, and I promise I don't have too many photos, but this is the Illinois National Cemetery or State Cemetery. And this is some of the memorials that they have, but this is in Springfield. This is not in Aurora. So this is like a 3-hour ride from Aurora, Illinois, in the center of the state. And then this one here is the Korean Memorial and for the state of Illinois. And this one here, I'm not sure. This is World War II, and the names of all the people are on the sides of it, just like you. And the one that I wanted to show you is this is the Lincoln Memorial. The Lincoln Memorial is big. It's very tall. You walk in that door down there on the right-hand side. When you point at it, right there. That's the door, and there's a guy standing there, right there. So you can see how big this thing is.
Oh,
Okay, so it's not a tiny thing. And then there's something about, and I don't know, some silly thing about rubbing the nose of the statue for good luck or something like that. But that's the front-on shot. Now the next one is, I actually went inside there, and you go around and you go in, and it's like a long tunnel around in there. I mean, this thing's like a cave when you get in there. And that is inside, and that's the tomb of Abraham Lincoln. And so when I say everything in Illinois is oriented toward Abraham Lincoln, it's
The land of Lincoln.
it is called the land of Lincoln, and when you get there, that's what you will see. It is worth seeing. It is worth taking the trip to go over to see that. There's a structure, and you notice the architecture of that building, which is just a maintenance building, looks very similar to the one they did. And the rock is the same structures they use from an architectural standpoint. These are the cannon that I were talking to you about. Over there, what they did in the cemetery is that they took the head of the cannon and represented, I believe, death is what they did. And you'll notice other places, here's the cannon, and its nose is sticking down, and there's a bunch of cannonballs, and here's a regiment all around the center of that particular one. And so that's some of the things that was unique. This was the first place where Abraham Lincoln was buried while they were building the big tomb. And so that was down below on the hillside. I thought it was interesting, and I had a new camera, so why not?
Oh, yeah.
This is the old State House. There's a lot of things in Illinois that are oriented toward history of England, a lot of places to go. You could spend 2 or 3 days there if you wanted to. I hit the hot spots, but I want to tell you the Lincoln Library was a fantastic one. It was just absolutely super. And there's another site of the old Capitol building in the land of Lincoln.
Well, that statue is wood, isn't it?
Which one?
Ours.
Here, in Foxborough.
I believe it is, yes.
It's wood, and they had to remake it.
That's right.
Yeah, that's quite a thing.
In fact, we have the original down in the basement, I believe. Is that right, Paul?
Oh, is that?
I think we have the original, just the head. Just the head. We even have an ascension number on it. We can go right to it. All right, I showed you, that's all the pictures I'm going to show you. I'm not going to show you the other 400.
I have one question.
Sure.
I can't quite understand. They were so interested in duplicating our coming here and seeing our building, and then adding all that other business on the side. I can't quite understand their purpose in
generation.
another generation. When was that other part put on?
1906.
Okay.
And I felt the same way as you. And so I found the answer in here. They had 2,500 volumes of books, and they ran out of room.
Oh, there we are.
And they wanted to build a library larger, and so they added this other portion of the book in. If you didn't have this historical report, you wouldn't know that. And
But
this
what a
is-
shame.
What a
Because-
shame it was, because they took this fantastic historic
Yeah.
building, and they added something on it that they should have used another building.
Just made
Now,
one building.
the thing is that what a treasure, in conclusion, what a treasure we have. The fact that it hasn't been touched. People have gone to it with a piece of sandpaper and did something on the wood. We have the original wood. We have a great building. I was sitting there last night at the commission meeting, and I know the guys were talking, and they probably thought I was in a daze someplace, but I was. Because when you look at the treasure that we have in Foxborough, and both of the buildings, in fact, are on the National Historic Register, we just have a fantastic piece of architecture and a place that we can call a great place. Any other questions?
You say both buildings are on the National Register.
Yes.
Now, do they have to get special permission then to do something?
I don't think the requirements for being on the National Register are that strict.
They're not restricted.
No. I think it stems from the fact of what it originally was. Any other questions? Thank you very much, and I appreciate it.